A global monetary reset isn't coming. It's already here because a debt crisis doesn't get fixed. It gets reset. And gold, it's always been the tool they use to do it. Every major monetary reset in modern history has followed the same pattern: runaway debt, a collapsing currency, and a sudden revaluation of gold. But this time we have the unsustainable debt. The dollar is losing its dominance. But before the currency fully collapses, they are already making moves to revalue gold and get ahead of the fallout, setting themselves up for power and success, while those who hold dollar-denominated assets will be left with nothing. The US debt has exploded to over $36 trillion, while central banks around the world are stockpiling gold, moving away from the dollar as fast as they can. All while gold is flowing into the United States in record numbers, at the same time that President Trump's US Treasury Secretary is openly hinting at a revaluation. But this isn't a coincidence. In fact, even the mainstream media, who would have laughed at this a couple weeks ago, are now discussing revaluations.
On the table, revaluing the country's gold reserves.
So if this is an outcome that we need to be prepared for, which is looking more and more likely, the question still remains: what does this look like in terms of the greater monetary reset? How would a revaluation actually work when the currency hasn't yet collapsed? And most importantly, how can we use this knowledge today before a revaluation to make sure that our wealth is protected and that we are set up for success on the other side? Let's get into it. America's debt crisis isn't new, but here's what makes this moment different. Over $20 trillion in U.S. debt is set to mature over the next decade, with a massive chunk maturing in the next 4 years. But when debt matures, there are really only two options. Option one, pay it off, which, let's be real, we're adding more debt by the second, not paying it off. Which leaves us with option two, roll over the debt at a much higher interest rate. And here's where this gets dangerous. We're talking trillions more in interest payments every year on top of the already $1 trillion annually we're spending on financing our debt, but it gets worse. Because when that debt rolls over, someone has to actually buy it. But who's going to buy it? Foreign countries that are moving away from the US dollar for fears of sanction, inflation, and instability? I don't think so. Think about it. If you were a foreign bank and you had $500 billion in US bonds and you were being threatened with sanctions or tariffs or whatever it might be, would you keep that $500 billion in US bonds? Would you roll that over, or would you quietly take your cash and move it into something safer like gold? Because as the dollar's total share of foreign exchange reserves dwindles, it's not other currencies that these countries are moving into, it is gold. But here's where it gets interesting. The US Treasury relies heavily on foreign investors to fund the US's debt. But just last week, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made a remark about the U.S. monetizing its assets over the next 12 months.
We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet.
Now, many have implied that this means that the U.S. is considering a revaluation. Of course, there are other options here. It could mean that the U.S. is considering using the gold as collateral for new financial instruments to back the U.S. debt. It would still put gold at the center, but it would be a different path. Although there are many who say that the reasoning to revalue gold still comes out as the front runner. The current accounting value of gold sits at $42.22, which of course is laughable when compared with the spot price of gold, which is just under $3,000 an ounce. Now, if they were to revalue to $3,000 an ounce, that would improve the United States balance sheet by about $800 billion. But some of you might be thinking, $800 billion, that's a drop in the bucket. We're adding that every couple of months to our debt sheet, which is true. So that's why many are speculating that the revaluation could actually be much higher. Now, how would this work? They could pick 5,000, 10,000, 50,000. In fact, the number they would need to wipe out the debt essentially would be to revalue gold at $138,000 per ounce. But if they were to make a move to revalue to 50,000 or beyond, this would be a fundamental change in the global monetary order. It would erase trust in fiat currency, not that there's much less, but it would essentially create massive inflation ripples, and it would force other central banks to revalue their gold as well. Again, completely upending and restructuring the financial system as we know it. It might sound like a wild theory, but if you think that this is completely impossible, consider this. Central banks around the world already hold their gold in an account called the Gold Revaluation Account. This is not speculation, this is a fact. And high-ranking officials, other central banks from foreign countries, even our own U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis has called for gold revaluation as a key to the new financial future.
We have reserves at our 12 Federal Reserve banks, including gold certificates that could be converted to current fair market value.
But here's where it gets even more interesting, the timing of everything. As gold revaluation has become more mainstream, over the last 2 months, we have seen a serious inflow of gold into the United States. Millions of ounces have been pouring into Wall Street from London and Switzerland, which is not normal. COMEX inventories have surged 75% since November when Donald Trump was elected our new president. Meanwhile, in London, the vaults are running dry, with delivery time stretching from a couple of days to now a couple of weeks. And JP Morgan, we don't even know how much gold they have, but they are scrambling to get their hands on as much as possible to meet demand. Why is this happening? Well, they are feeding us to surface level reasons, which could be playing a part, but I don't buy it's the only one. Number one, tariff concerns. Okay, so they're trying to move everything over before potentially they have to pay more to ship it to the United States. Number two is the difference between spot and futures prices. So they're trying to make some quick profit. Again, neither of these account for the significant inflow of gold and the demand for delivery that we're seeing, especially when combined with all of the recent remarks coming from President Trump and his new staff. It does not add up. In fact, this might be the clearest sign that we're seeing that a global monetary reset is accelerating with gold at the center. What do you think about all of this? What do you think is going to happen next? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, because this is where what we're seeing today breaks from what we're used to seeing in history. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, typically what we expect to see in history is that a currency collapses under the weight of unsustainable debt, right? Unsustainable debt that leads to inflation and hyperinflation. The fiat currency is worthless, and as a result of that, we see gold go to its fundamental value, which is significantly higher than the worthless paper. But right now, the US dollar isn't in a free fall. No, we know that it's being chipped away at. We know that it's in an accelerated decline, but it hasn't collapsed by any means. So are they preparing? Are they getting ahead of the coming collapse in a break from what we've seen in history? I can only guess, because this likely isn't happening in isolation. All the way up to the very top, the people who pull the strings, we have Basel III in the background, which is quietly reshaping the entire financial system, categorizing gold as a tier 1 asset, making it as safe as it possibly can and forcing banks to move towards physical gold. This has created a movement around the world of central banks quietly bringing their physical gold back home, making sure that they are ready and prepared, which tells me that they know something big is coming and they are getting in position for it. So what if this surge of gold into the US and talk about revaluation and a global tightening of regulations around gold are all part of a bigger plan? Because to me, it feels like they're rewriting the script here. China has been buying gold in record amounts for the last couple of years, stockpiling as much as they can get their hands on. Could it be that the United States is actually trying to front-run BRICS to get in front of them to revalue gold first and try and set ourselves in a position of power? We don't know for sure, but if history does tell us one thing, it's that gold is always at the center of the next monetary shift. It's what happened with FDR in the 1930s and what we are seeing today as the world prepares for the coming reset. But make no mistake, those in power aren't in the habit of giving away their power or giving away their wealth. Every time there has been a significant monetary reset, there is a wealth transfer that goes along with it, where the rich and the elite get more wealthy and most people are left with significantly less. And that is because those with insider knowledge, those who know what's coming next, are able to prepare and shift into the new system, while those who are not ready or who don't want to see what's coming next are left in the old system. And if you are left holding dollar or dollar denominated assets, as this shift accelerates, then you are going to be left behind. So how can you use this knowledge to protect yourself? Well, it's clear that gold is the future, not just in the United States, but in the entire world. We are moving towards a commodity supercycle, and gold is going to be at the center of it. Trust in fiat currencies is completely broken, and the US dollar is going to be in the past. So if I were you, I can't give financial advice, but I strongly, strongly recommend that if you are concerned about any of this, that you talk to a member of our team, one of our expert analysts who understand currency life cycles, who understand the coming reset, who understand all of this in so much detail and have decades of experience in helping people just like you prepare for what's coming next. And as another incredible step, I also highly recommend that you download our free ITM Gold and Silver Guide. Why not have a copy available to you? You can do it by scanning the QR code. You can click the link in the description below or call us at the number below. Any of them work, and we are here to help you because, as we always say, there's strength in numbers, and education is a very, very important first step. But of course, it is action that will truly protect you against what's coming next, and not just protect you, but set yourself up for opportunity on the other side of the reset. And as always, I so appreciate you being here today. I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, your trusted source for all things gold, silver, and lifelong wealth protection. Until next time.